I'm Cathy Lindsey, and I'm here today with a very special guest. We have Secretary of State Michael Adams here because we're talking about election season, and that's kind of his game. So we're glad that he's taken the time to join us today. So let's welcome Secretary of State Michael Adams.
Thank you, Cathy.
It's nice to have you here because it's time for people to go vote again. So let's talk about the voting process and how people can be assured that their vote is safe and secure. What are some measures that have been taken, and how can you as Secretary of State guarantee that the election process is A-OK?
Well, it's never been more easy to vote in Kentucky history, and it's never been harder to cheat. And you can have both of those things at the same time, and that's what Kentucky has shown the rest of the country is you can make it hard to cheat without disenfranchising people. And so I'll start with the accessibility. There are 4 convenient ways now to vote in Kentucky. That didn't used to be the case even just a few years ago, but now it is. You can vote by absentee ballot. You have to qualify based on your age or your health or your disability or being out of the county when other voting is occurring. If you qualify, and a lot of Kentuckians do, way more than actually use absentee voting, then the best way to vote absentee is go to our website, sos.ky.gov, click through, and then you'll see the portal. And the portal does everything. You can register to vote there. You can volunteer to be a poll worker there. You can ask for your absentee ballot. If you do that, it will ask you for some verifying information. Of course, we do verify voters before they cast ballots. And then your ballot will be sent to you. And the best part is you can track it online, 24/7 from your phone.
Oh, wow.
And you can see if your ballot's been sent to you and did the clerk get it back and did your vote count. So first, absentee voting. The portal is now open. We opened that this past Saturday. It'll be open for a few more weeks. Don't delay. If you possibly can go ahead and get that request in, do it. It just makes it that much easier on Jeff Hancock, your county clerk, to go ahead and get those processed versus waiting until the end with a huge demand at the end. The second way to vote is new. It's something that was passed in this session this year. It's called in-person absentee. Maybe you qualify to vote absentee because you're not going to be in Franklin County on election day or the days before election day where we have no excuse early voting. If that's the case, but you don't want to mail in your ballot or drop box your ballot, if you prefer to vote in person, that's fine. We've got 6 convenient days for you to do in-person absentee at the clerk's office. That's October 26th through 28th. And October 31st through November 2nd. The third way to vote is early voting. That's new. That's something that we implemented during my term of office. We had weeks and weeks of it in 2020 due to COVID-19 to make sure that we avoided crowds. We weren't able to make weeks and weeks permanent, but we did keep the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday before Election Day. So that would be November 3rd through the 5th. And no excuses required. There's no reason. It's just you'd rather vote on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday instead of on a Tuesday. That's fine. That's your business.
So why did you think it was important to implement that?
Well, I think it's a little absurd that you would have an important government function and just make it available to people on one day in some arbitrary number of hours. We would be outraged if the DMV were open for just one day, or a bank or any other service. Like, come on, you're paying for this. You're paying for these elections. These should be accessible. European countries, they have election day on a Saturday or a Sunday because they want people to come vote. I don't think it's a good idea to make it a holiday because then you create childcare issues and so forth. The better approach is what we did in Kentucky, which is just to expand the number of days, including a Saturday.
Mm-hmm. And then, was there one more way?
There's one more.
Okay, sorry.
Election, not at all. Election day is November 8th.
Yep.
And that's in the Constitution. Election day is open 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And, of course, the locations Jeff has already provided on his program.
Yes.
He's done a great job making voting accessible here in Franklin County.
And we appreciate that. And one thing that's very important is that people feel like they have access to vote, that they have the opportunity to vote, the time, and a location that they can get to. So again, we appreciate the work that our county clerk has done, and also we appreciate the work that you have done as Secretary of State to open up some days for people to be able to vote. Not everybody's on the same schedule.
That's true, and we found in 2020 that the days that really had the big burst of activity were those last few days. People have seen the ads, they've got the mailers, they've had the candidates come to their doors. That's when they make up their minds, the last few days before the election, and that's when you really capture the turnout if it materializes.
Okay. So can you tell people a little bit about kind of the checks and balances to the process?
Yeah, we've done a lot in the last few years to improve the security of our process that's appropriate. But the truth is, we have actually not just created security recently. We've had secure elections for a long time. I'd say they're better now. But one important feature that a lot of folks don't realize, bipartisanship is a security feature. And so for a very long time, the whole time I've been involved in elections for 30 years myself, starting as a poll worker and then making all the way to the chief election official, we have a bipartisan run process. I got a lot of credit, and so did the governor in 2020 for working across party lines together. But we weren't the only ones who did. We've got a bipartisan state board of elections here in Frankfort, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans. Every county in Kentucky by law must have a bipartisan county board of elections. Your sheriff is on it, your county clerk is on it, plus 1 Democrat and 1 Republican that the 2 parties each choose. So they have a voice too. Every single precinct, every single voting location in Kentucky is also bipartisan. By law, you got to have D's and R's working the polls together. That's important for 2 reasons. One is just checks and balances. The Democrats are watching the Republicans, and the Republicans are watching the Democrats. The other, though, is optics. People can trust the process when they know that they're being heard and they're at the table, and their side is monitoring the process. And so I think it's comforting to Kentuckians, at least it should be, to know that both sides are coming together to run these elections.
Okay. So what would you say, as this being part of your job, what's the biggest challenge to ensure a successful election day?
The biggest challenge is actually one that predated COVID even. I was invited to speak to the legislature when I first won my election before I was sworn in, and I told them we had a crisis brewing in poll worker recruitment. That was before COVID. Mm-hmm. And look, this is not just an election problem. Every part of society is suffering from this. A decline in volunteering, a decline in civic engagement, a decline in philanthropy. There are larger social problems here. But the impact that we see on the election front is we have fewer volunteers. Most of our volunteers are senior citizens. And of course, they age out of the process over time. And their kids and grandkids aren't taking their place volunteering. It takes 15,000 volunteers to run an election in Kentucky. I've got a staff of about 35. You can do the math. It's not enough. I need help. Mm-hmm. I need volunteers. By law, it is the role of the 2 parties to find the poll workers. It's not Jeff's job or even mine. It's the job of the parties. Unfortunately, the parties are also somewhat in decline as institutions, and so it's difficult to find these people and get them to the polls. We work really hard trying to find younger people. We've done a number of outreach programs to find younger poll workers. That has somewhat stenched the tide a bit, but it's not enough. We need a larger reawakening for civic engagement.
Yeah, we need to figure out what we can do to help that out because it is, getting younger people is important anyway, as far as getting them involved in the process. And do you have any suggestions of anything that we can do to reach out more to those younger people?
Well, something that we're doing that we'd encourage others to do as well is we've got a partnership with the YMCA. They've done this a long time before I got here too. They go to high schools and they reach young people and get them to register to vote. So we're working with them, but we also added something to that. Now that we've changed the law in Kentucky that any voter can be a poll worker, it used to be limited who could do it. Now anyone can do it who's registered. So we get a twofer. We ask them to register and we ask them to be a poll worker too. And once you're a poll worker, if you're 18 years old, it changes your life. You're exposed to this process. You have more confidence in the process. You have more confidence in the institutions, and you want to do it again. In my case, I was a poll worker when I was a teenager, and it led to a lifelong interest in government and politics. And so my hope is that we'll get these younger voters to engage and help us run the election, but also that we'll have them hooked for life, and they'll vote and they'll engage.
I like that idea. So if we have somebody watching right now that is interested in volunteering at the polls, what do they need to do?
Well, go to our website, sos.ky.gov, and you can click on the elections button, and then it'll take you to the portal. And there's a place to check your voter information, to register, to ask for your absentee ballot, and so forth. But there's also a great big button that says become a poll worker. Just click on that and fill out the form.
Well, that is great information, and I hope the people who are watching take that advice to heart and, take some time to go work at the polls because you get to meet your community members and put in a little public service. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us today?
There's one really important point, and it's not as big an issue in Franklin County, but there are some parts of the state where it is. Unfortunately, and it's not just in the elections field, our public are becoming more and more vulnerable to misinformation. They're getting misinformation about health, about vaccination, about elections, about really everything. In many cases, this has actually been tied to foreign powers who are adversarial to the United States, and they're pushing this stuff because it weakens our country. I would encourage anyone watching, if you have concerns about our elections, about the integrity, about the process, about suppression, anything, call us and ask about it. Talk to our office, talk to your county clerk's office, talk to a poll worker who volunteers and actually witnesses all of this and can put your mind at ease about the things that you hear online.
That is great advice. And if you have questions about anything, call people and ask. Just don't take information and just think it's true, especially if you have concerns about it. So we want to encourage people to get involved in the voting process. You have lots of opportunities, as we've discussed here. Our Secretary of State and our county clerk want to make it as accessible as possible for you, because that's how important it is. So we're looking at early voting on November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and then you can go on November 8th as well. We've discussed the locations and the times, and we hope you get out there and vote this election season. One more time, let's thank our Secretary of State, Michael Adams, for joining us today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And we hope to see you at the polls.